In 1981, I joined some friends and accompanied Silo to a number of events in Europe and Asia. It seems to me that among all the extraordinary occurrences on that trip, two of the most extraordinary took place in Asia. The first was in India, on Mumbai's Chowpatty Beach. One of our companions on that tour was Bhatandra Ayappa, a retired engineer and teacher of yoga. I remember very vividly the weather.
The weather was very bad, very bad. There was a warning that there's going to be a big cyclone and it will hit Bombay. In spite of that, we were able to gather 10,000 people at this spot.
We had there, no? The stage there.
Exactly there.
In the midst of that chaos, despite the storm, after speeches and talks, Silo invited those who agreed with his message to stand. 10,000 people rose to their feet, and for many, something extraordinary happened. From this very internal experience, people drew varied conclusions, interpreting the experience in different ways, with consequences that continue to play out decades later. Mukul Desai lives a short walk from his shop in a middle-class Mumbai neighborhood. Every week for the last decade, members of his extended family gather for a meeting about Silo's message.
और अपना ध्यान अपने श्वासोश्वास के ऊपर हल्का और गहरा हो सके उतना आराम से और गहरा.
From the beginning, from the existence of man, man has to face pain and suffering. When we do these experiences, then it gives us the power to face the challenges that are created in day-to-day life.
Some Friday we discuss on current topics, we discuss for local problems, we discuss for our child development, we discuss for the education systems, we discuss for our personal life, family life. This makes our knowledge wider and wider and global, and we transform this to our society.
Despite India's economic boom, poverty remains an enormous and extensive problem. It's not surprising then that these influences took another form in Nehru Nagar, one of the region's many slums. Shankar was born and still lives here with his parents, his wife, and his child. Inspired by Silo, he's helped transform this place.
Center started last 15 years. So many medical camps, so many campaigns, children education.
10 years ago, there were no street lights here. Now, because of the humanist movement, there are.
Our area, no lights.
So now there's light, there's anti-malarial campaign.
Yes.
It used to be that every year when the monsoon rains came, raw sewage would flood the houses. But they've resolved that problem as well. All of this forms only a small part of the activities they've organized here over the last decade.
This is Humanity Center. This last 10 years we are running.
So the idea is that they'll learn to sew and then they can actually get work sewing and earn some money and help support the family.
Getting 100 to 150 rupees. You can manage your family easily.
Rukaya Joshi is a professor of management and an important part of this project.
So focus of this center where I'm associated is women and children.
It's very interesting that this man from the other side of the world, from so far away, touched you and
transformed me.
And it's not just individuals that were transformed.
People had lost faith in themselves in this area of Nehru Nagar. They had lost faith that any improvement can ever be done. But after we started the work and after the movement started doing their activities, now almost everybody has got real faith that things can happen change can come.
These changes aren't limited to the city. 10 hours by train and another half day of driving will bring you here to Nilanga, a small farming village. Lakendra Seth has invested a lot of time helping to organize humanist centers in the villages throughout the region. Like Silo and the other Siloists, he's an unpaid volunteer.
They organize to see what are the problems which are faced in the villages, and they work for solving those problems.
First on the list was electricity, something they'd never had before.
And then they organized different kind of computer centers here. On that computer centers, they try to give all the informations to the farmers. Here they also teach them how to do better farming, better organized systems, and change the costing of the farming by making new inventions into the farming.
One of the most important innovations involved switching from expensive chemical fertilizers to organic farming. This would be an extraordinary story, even if it only involved this village or that slum. But it involves much, much more. Invisible to the mass media, unreported in the news, the consequences of Silo's message are transforming lives in the largest cities and in over 1,000 villages in India alone. But all of that was to unfold in the years following Silo's brief visit in 1981. Back then, he traveled from Mumbai to Sri Lanka for meetings with members of the Buddhist community. He also met with Sri Lanka's Prime Minister, Rana Singh Pramadasa. The meeting was civil, but the Prime Minister was unusually forthcoming. He told Silo it was pointless for a foreigner to come here and preach nonviolence in this peaceful Buddhist nation. Some years later, Premadasa was assassinated, and Sri Lanka continued its plunge into a violent civil war